friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Yet again, I'm so thankful that you chose to click on this video. I have two things that I'm going to do today. Mainly, I'm going to talk about the 7 books that I read in the second half of the month of January. But also, before we get to the books that I need to wrap up, I am so excited because I started my Patreon kind of in the middle of December, and I made it kind of a pipe dream goal that when I hit 50 patrons, I'm going to do a giveaway, thinking it might take a little while to get there. You guys, I already have just over 50 patrons. I have 51 patrons currently active, and I'm so blown away by that and so thankful. And so I'm going to do a giveaway right now for those 51 people who have decided to support me on Patreon and join the book club that I have over there and all the little extra goodies, but also just to show me their love and support. And it means so much to me. So I'm giving away $50 on Amazon. $50! You can get lots of books for $50 on Amazon, and I'm really excited to share that with my patrons. So I have pulled up on my computer a random number generator, and I put it so that both things are on the same screen. So here's my list of everybody's name. Here's a random number generator. I'm so excited. Who is going to win $50? I'm going to put it to 51 people and generate. The number is 37. Let's see who is number 37. It is Deb Mendocino. Deb Mendocino, congratulations. You are the winner. I will send you an email and all of that. Actually, I'll probably send it to you before this even goes live. But I'm really excited for being able to just bless my patrons in little ways. I had a Zoom call the other night with my $8 patrons and gave away 2 things in that Zoom call as a little thank you. And now a $50 Amazon gift card for Deb Mendocino. You are the winner. Yay, Deb. I'm very thankful for you, Deb, and for all of you who have already decided to join me over on Patreon. I have loved the conversations that we've had. I'm still working out some details of things, and you guys are so patient and kind and loving. And it's just been so much fun. It's been so much fun. I've loved it. So Deb, congratulations. I will be in touch with you. Again, all of my patron information is down in the description box below. It does mean a lot that you guys support me and show me your love in that way. So thank you so much. And now it's time to talk about the 7 books that I read towards the end of the month. There were some really good ones in here, and I can't wait to talk about them with you. First of all, our patron pick for January was This Tenderland by William Kent Kruger. Golly, this book was beautiful. I was a little nervous going into it because I had heard from a few people that it didn't live up to the hype for them, but it 1000% lived up to the hype for me. I really loved the story of these 4 children who had to escape an awful situation and travel down the river, and they had a couple different stops along the way. I loved the side characters. I loved the beautiful writing. I loved the journey that Odie, especially our main character was Odie. The 4 kids going down the river were Odie, his brother Albert, Mose, and a little girl named Emmy. They escaped from an Indian training school, I think in Minnesota somewhere. And this school was horrifying. And it turns out this was like a real part of American history, where these training schools where Native children would be sent there. And these schools, their stated purpose was to kill the Indians, save the man, which is just completely off the rocker, unbelievable. So they would do everything to humiliate and abuse, ultimately, these kids. They'd cut their hair when they came. They would refuse to allow them to speak their native languages or practice their native religions. These schools were just horrifying. Odie and Albert were not actually a Native American, but they had become orphaned. And so they ended up at this Indian training school. Albert was kind of like a oldest brother, a little bit of a know-it-all, a little bit of a always wanting to do the right thing, a little bit of a kiss up. And then Odie, the younger brother, was the one always kind of getting into trouble and getting himself into these scrapes and ending up in this isolation room and whatnot. But they end up becoming really good friends with this boy named Mose, who is a Native American boy who shows up at the school. And when he gets there, his tongue had been cut out. We don't really know why. He has a really hard time communicating with people. He can hear fine. He just can't speak. And so Albert and Odie know sign language, so they teach it to Mose. And Emmy and her mom were like a breath of fresh air in the midst of this horrible school situation. Anyways, it gets to a point where something happens and these four decide to escape and get out of Dodge. And they get on a boat and they travel down the Gilead River. So a lot of this book takes place along the river and the people that they meet and the journey, especially, I loved the journey that Odie went on as far as how he views God. At the beginning, he kind of views God as a tornado and just kind of comes in and wrecks everything and then takes off. But throughout the story, Odie really experiences God in some different ways through some different people. And this group of four kids really become like a family to each other. But it just was so beautiful. And there were some twists and surprises at the end that I wasn't prepared for and I did not see coming. And I loved that. And I loved the discussion that we were able to have over on Discord and Patreon about this book. So many people loved it as well. It was just great. It was just great. Easy 5 stars. Can you tell that I loved this book? It was so good. Potential for like among the favorites of the year. I'm a little wary of calling my favorite of the year so early like I did last year, but this will most definitely be among my favorites of the year. It was wonderful. So wonderful. One that I was a little bit disappointed in, to be honest, is one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and that was The Mystery of Mrs Christie by Marie Benedict. There was a lot that I really did love about this, but there was a few things that really irritated me as well. I like to have some kind of characters that I can root for, and I was really frustrated with the majority of the characters in this book, in particular the Agatha Christie character and her husband. Agatha Christie went missing in her real life for 11 days. Where did she go? What happened? Nobody really knows what happened. She showed up at this hotel 11 days later. So we follow this kind of current timeline where the husband learns that his wife is missing, and we see his side of things as far as what's going down. And we know there's something just kind of off. And then we also have this past timeline of we see their relationship from the beginning and their marriage and the struggles that they had and all of the things kind of leading up to this point of her going missing. I really didn't care for the Agatha Christie character. I don't know. I've never read a biography about her. I don't know much about her life, but I didn't really care for her in this book. And I really didn't love the husband at all. He was just awful, 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 awful character right from the beginning. Like, I didn't see the draw of him, I guess because he was mysterious or something. But I did enjoy the reading experience, though. I kind of flew through it. I was very invested. I wanted to know what was going on? Where were we going with all of this? And I just had fun trying to puzzle it out along the way, trying to figure out what was going on. There were some things that were a little confusing, though. Like, there was a letter that he reads right at the beginning. We don't get the full letter, but that has a big impact on the rest of the story. And so I felt a little bit confused by that. And I also really didn't care for the fact that some of her mystery books actually get spoiled in here, and I haven't read all of her books. So I know in particular The Mysterious Affair at Styles and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, I believe there are some spoilery things. I don't know if the whole thing gets spoiled. Again, I haven't read them, but they talked about those 2 books in particular quite a bit. And I was like, am I being ruined from reading those books? I don't know. So I did give this 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but it did have a few issues for me. So it's a little bit of a bummer because it was one of my most anticipated reads of this winter, but I'm glad that I read it. I need to return it to the library because I'm sure it has holds on it. Next, I picked up a book that is a little out of my comfort zone because I grabbed a book of poetry. And now this is a middle grade book of poetry and it's teensy tiny. Like, it took me maybe an hour, not even an hour probably, to read through this book called On the Horizon by Lois Lowry. This is a collection of Lois Lowry's poems that take place right in the midst of World War II. So the first half of the book are poems about Pearl Harbor and the attack on Pearl Harbor. And then the second half of the book are based around the bomb that went off in Hiroshima. I'm not sure how to say Hiroshima. Lois Lowry was a child in Hawaii, and this kind of all started because they were looking at her childhood photos one day, and they noticed on the horizon was the Alabama, the boat that was actually sunk, Arizona. So on the horizon in their childhood, in the photos that they were looking at, they're playing on the beach and having a jolly old time. And in the background is the USS Arizona, which is the boat that actually ended up getting sunk when the Japanese dropped a bomb on Pearl Harbor. So that's kind of what started this whole thing. And then she, a few years later, moved to Japan. So then was there following the bomb of the atomic bomb that went off in Hiroshima, and has a connection with another child that was there. It just, the way that the whole thing was wrapped up at the end was what really blew me away. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I thought the poems were, for the most part, very moving and emotional. There were a few that I didn't connect with as much maybe, but the way that it all came together at the end I thought was really beautiful, and it's worth a read, especially for someone who doesn't read poetry. I thought that this was wonderful. So I'm really glad that I read that one. Next, I have another 5-star read. I think this was my 3rd 5-star read of the month. I read this book with Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf, and it's The Reckoning at Gossamer Pond by Jamie Jo Wright. It's also my 2nd Jamie Jo Wright for the book. It's also my 2nd Jamie Jo Wright for the month of January, which is crazy. I am so glad. She's one of the authors that I wanted to read in 2021. So I'm glad that I read 2 of them already in January. That's pretty awesome. This book was, I really enjoyed both Jamie Jo Wright's books. I did like this one a little bit better. And I think because I read it in print and didn't listen to the audio. House on Foster Hill I enjoyed, but I listened to the audio of that one, and I think I enjoyed more reading it in print. I really enjoyed the creepy and somewhat intense atmosphere that Jamie Jo Wright develops in this book. We do follow 2 women in 2 different timelines, about 100 years apart. And I really liked both of these storylines and the secrets. Both of these women live in Gossamer Grove, which is the town where there's a Gossamer Pond. And I really liked how these 2 women's storylines tied together. I liked how both of them had secrets, and there was this family that's kind of been in the town for generations, and so that family is kind of what connects these 2 storylines. The girl that we follow is named Libby, and she works at the newspaper, and her father, Mitch, is a sensationalist. Like, he likes to get people riled up because he thinks it's going to sell more papers. Libby gets drawn into the drama really because she receives at the newspaper office an obituary for someone who's not dead yet. And she goes to try to track him down and finds out that he finds him hanging in the stables. So it's like, whoa, how come there's an obituary sent first? Was he murdered? Did he really kill himself as it appears? So there's this mystery of what's going on, and he's not the first one. So this happens a couple different times in the past timeline. In the current day timeline, we follow Annalise, who is living in this town, feels a little bit trapped by the secrets that are in her past. She's trying to get the town to donate some land so that she can have some kind of a homeless shelter or something. She's very concerned about the people in her town. And it turns out that one of these homeless men that Annalise is trying to help is living in this little trailer. I guess he's not totally homeless, but he's living in this trailer out in the middle of nowhere. And it appears that he is some kind of a stalker. Like the trailer is filled with pictures of Annalise. It's just strange and weird and what's going on. And I was totally caught up in the story. I loved how the layers just seemed to keep peeling back. Like I would have so many guesses about what was happening, and then I'd learn a little bit more, and then I would learn a little bit more. She just kept me drawn into the drama for sure. And then she'd reveal just a touch more. The pacing was so on point for this book. It was so well done. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved the themes of healing and forgiveness and grace. I loved the suspicious moments between the characters. I loved that it kept me on my toes of who can I trust, who is untrustworthy. I just love how it all connected at the end. Yeah, this was a definite 5-star read for me, and I'm really eager. I have one more of her books on my shelves. I'm taking a little bit of a break since I read 2 in January, but I am really eager to read more from her. I just was thrilled with this one. So good. Another body read that I completed in January is the final book in the Penderwix at Last by Jean Birdsall. This is the book 5 in the series. I thought it was a lovely conclusion to the series because we kind of, all of the Penderwick family kind of comes together for this wedding. We really are following the youngest Penderwick, Lydia. I believe she's in about 5th grade, and she just loves to dance. She can't contain herself. Whenever she hears music, she just has to dance. She's such a fun, a vibrant personality, as are all of the Penderwix, to be honest. But all of the family kind of comes back together to Arendelle, which is where book 1 happens. It's where they went on vacation in book 1. So it's kind of came full circle in that respect. However, a few things that I had a problem with, it just felt like not very much actually happened. It also felt like everybody was just a little bit too sweet. Some of the things I liked about books 2, 3, and 4 is that they really were dealing with some serious issues like grieving and like feeling the guilt of things. Just some bigger issues I feel like were dealt with in the middle books. But this one just felt sweet and light, and even the one sister breaks up with somebody, and even the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend was just a lovely character. Everybody just felt so sweet. The one kind of foil to all of that was just so comical. It didn't feel like a serious conflict with her. She just felt very farcical. And my third major problem with this is that the wedding gets so glossed over. I feel like the whole book is building to this wedding, and then the next chapter starts, and after the wedding, blah blah blah. We didn't even get to see the wedding at all. So I was like, really? That felt a little odd to me. So I did only give this 3 stars, but I still feel like it was kind of a lovely conclusion to the whole series, the series as a whole. Thank you so much to Elizabeth at Lizzie Faye Loves Books for reading this with me. I really enjoyed chatting with you along the way. I think she may have ended up giving it a little bit higher of a rating than I did. I enjoyed reading it with her, and I'm really thrilled to knock out a series, because reading through some series is a definite goal for 2021. So yay for that. Guys, I'm so proud of myself, because the next book I'm going to talk about is one of my NetGalley books. Yay! It's also one of my most anticipated reads from this winter, and that is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Oh man, what a fun ride this book was. I'm so proud of myself, first of all, for reading a NetGalley book, getting one of those knocked out, slightly increasing my percentage on there. I was really captivated by this novel and the 2 women that we follow. So this again has dual timeline. We follow Nella in the 1700s in London. Nella is an apothecary. Her mother taught her the trade, and her mother specifically wanted to have a place for women to come for women's issues and to treat women in a way that they would not ever get to be treated by the doctors of the day. Nella starts out that way in learning all about herbs and medicines and all of these things, but she gets brutally misused by a gentleman who apparently already had a wife, and she decides to kind of take matters into her own hands and gets rid of him. Well, this starts a trend in her life, and women start to learn that there's an apothecary who can provide them with poisons or other means of doing away, ultimately murdering the men in their lives who've either abused them or cheated on them or for whatever reason. So brothers, husbands, lovers, all of these men. And so she kind of becomes a serial killer in 1700s London. Then we also follow Caroline in kind of a present day London. She is meant to be on her 10th anniversary trip with her husband. Only just before the trip, she found out that he was cheating on her. So she takes the trip on her own to kind of have some space, get away, think through things, grieve a little bit, well, probably a lot, and just get away from him. So while in London, she ends up on this mudlarking adventure on the banks of the Thames River in London. And while on her adventure, mudlarking, which I guess is like walking along the banks and like finding small objects that are from the past. While walking along the river, she finds a vial that has some bear etchings on it, like the etchings of a bear. And no words, no nothing, and she is just captivated by this. Well, Caroline used to have a love of history and research, but in the course of her marriage and having to choose what's right or at the time for her family, she kind of put her own dreams and her own desires on the back burner, as so many wives and mothers do, and men as well, but mostly wives and mothers end up putting their dreams on the back burner for the sake of their families. Finding this vial kind of sparks a little bit of a flame within her, and she just begins researching this vial. And of course, this vial is connected with this apothecary woman back in the 1700s. And it's just fun to watch her try to figure everything out and watch what's going on with Nella in the past. I was just 100% along for the ride. I found both storylines super compelling. I was very eager to find out what was going to happen to both of these women. And I loved seeing how the secrets and ultimately connected with each other and what they were each going to do with the information that they found and had. I really just came to care what was going to happen to these two women. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of books that have infidelity as one of the plot lines. And while the infidelity happens before this book begins, it was a part of the book, and I didn't love that. But I love how it was handled, and I love where Caroline went with it. I love her kind of rediscovering this part of her that she had kind of put on the back burner and kind of reigniting this love for history and research within herself. I just thought that was so cool. Yeah, this was a debut novel by Sarah Penner, and I gotta say, I would absolutely read more books from her. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was really wonderful and just a fun read. So thank you to NetGalley for allowing me to read that. The final book that I have, I did talk about quite a bit in a weekend reading vlog that just went up earlier this week, but that is Becoming Mrs. Lewis by Patty Callahan. This book is about Joy Davidman, who becomes Mrs. Lewis, the wife of C.S. Lewis. It was beautiful, and talk about slow burn, like the ultimate slow burn. It was heart-wrenching at the end. I was weeping, but we really follow Joy and her struggle in her marriage. At the very beginning of the book, she has this conversion experience and has so many questions and really wants to figure out who God is, and she had this dramatic experience and wanted to just talk through it all with somebody. And a friend of hers said, hey, why don't you just write to C.S. Lewis? So she does. And this begins a correspondence with him that lasts for a number of years. Turns out her husband is a jerk, cheats on her, speaks down about her writing. She in herself is an author as well, right? Has received acclaim for her poetry. She helps support the family with her writing, but her husband just isn't very kind about it and very degrading to her. Starts out as part of this correspondence, but quickly it just becomes between C.S. Lewis and Joy, and they just are able to discuss things. She's very kind of like a really strong-willed woman and has a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts. She's incredibly intelligent, and I think that was a draw for C.S. Lewis, who in himself is also very, very intelligent. So I think that is what brought them together. But it's just the story of their writing, their correspondence, their love story ultimately. The ending really, really broke my heart. I was weeping. I did find this quite slow at times, like a slow burn. There's definitely not a lot of like action and fast-paced moments. It's definitely this character study of Joy. It almost feels like you're reading her memoir. So I'm very curious to see how much is actually true, because this is historical fiction. C.S. Lewis did not keep any of his letters, and I don't know that Joy did either. So all of the correspondence in here, at first I thought it was from actual correspondence, but it wasn't. It's all fictionalized. So I know that I was talking with someone else and they had the same kind of frustration with this book because they didn't know what was real and what wasn't. I just enjoyed it for what it was, and I thought it was a beautiful story of love, ultimately, and had some really deep things to think about along the way. And it really inspired me to want to pick up particularly more books from C.S. Lewis. I have a whole stack of C.S. Lewis books in the other room that are just waiting for me to read them. So in particular, I would love to read Surprised by Joy, which isn't about this joy. It's like the joy of the Lord. Surprised by Joy, I want to read, which is his autobiography. And what was the other one I really want to read? Till We Have Faces, which is a myth retelling. I forget which myth it retells, but it's kind of a retelling of of 2 Greek gods or something along those lines. But yeah, this was lovely. 4 stars. Have tissues ready near the end. I didn't need the tissues until right up till the end, but the last 50 pages or so wrecked me. So good. I don't have the NetGalley book, but here are the 6 that I do have. Oy. But here are the 6 that I do have. I would love to know, did you read any of these? Did you have any 5-star reads in January? What did you think about what was some of your favorite reads from the month. What did you think about any of these or anything else you want to talk about? You guys know I love chatting with you down in the comments. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Congrats, Deb, again for winning the $50 for my patron giveaway. Congratulations. Yeah, you guys are awesome. I love you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.